Kusala mahle asinivusele sinimukele lo mhla ekseni ehlelweni Kusile breakfast show seyibumbene insimbi esithupha lo muhla sethemba ukuthi niphilile lo muhla. We are on the 8th day of May 2025. Good morning. My name is Lungelele Makakula. I'm with the one and only 12. Mguni, how are you this morning?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm great. I'm
good. Really hoping that babukeli bethu nalo mhla baphilile. Sibonga umdali wetinsuku ukuthi sivukele nalo mhla ekseni sitaqhubeka nalo luhlelo. Coming up on the show today, we are in conversation with His Excellency Carsten Mecklenburg, the newly accredited EU ambassador to Eswatini. We want to talk all things that follow that. The kingdom prepares to celebrate Europe Day 2025. And then we sit down with the man that is currently steering one of the Eswatini's longest-standing development partnerships. You know, we have seen health, we have seen human rights and agriculture sort of partnerships with the EU and the Kingdom of Eswatini. Now, 6 billion Malangeni has been invested since independence. That's a lot of money. The European Union's impact in Eswatini is wide-ranging and deeply rooted. But what is next? What are the EU's priorities under Ambassador Mecklenburg's leadership? How does the EU plan to help Eswatini navigate global challenges like climate change, conflict, and economic inclusion? We are looking to have an insightful conversation that connects local realities with global diplomacy, as well as maybe a closer look at the EU Bushfire Schools Festival, Europe Day 2025, and the road ahead.
Yeah, Kunjalambule, there's a lot on the program. We'll be joined later by a representative from Lidwala Insurance, Watokulumanga Risk Compensation, work compensation, M17 Sabesinaye, Sane Liso Lamini Lumutla on the program. But for now, let's take a look at newspaper headlines. Starting with the Times of Eswatini, leading stories this Thursday, police army at work. 17 smuggled cars have been recovered. These are a Ford Ranger, Toyota Fortuner, and a Polo and a Toyota Quantum. They are some of the 17 smuggled vehicles parked at Slobamba police station. In other news, Samora's bid to hold suspension case fails. Judge says Eswatini Med should not be held to ransom by inactivity of chairman. Deems Similana's arguments academic, case will now move forward. And inside the Times of Eswatini, there is a list of over 150 scholarships from the Foreign Affairs Ministry. And in other news, single moms cry foul over delayed child support.
Times of Eswatini, top stories on their sports section. There's a cost of misconduct as Bullbirds risk prizes forfeit. That is on that photo, some police officers trying to regain control following the chaotic scenes during the Mbabane Derby last month at Mavuso Sports Center. However, fines are now threatening to exceed the end-of-season prize money for some of the MTN Premier League clubs. On another story, Giants with pending case among sides that have already accumulated fines this season, while Birds seek funding for injured stars. In South Africa, Sundowns break record as they beat Cheaper 3-0. And in the UEFA Champions League, Barcelona calls for ref probe.
Moving on to the Eswatini Observer, leading stories, government to build new houses for 15 more families. Deputy Prime Minister and her delegation, this is a picture of her arriving at Lahliwe Gamete Lamini's home under Sikaweni East Umphakathi yesterday to assess her situation. In other news, crisis escalates, health center staff protests over drug shortages. Employees say lack of PPE, unpaid overtime also fuel frustration. And meanwhile, CMS truck drivers, but uncertainty remains. In other news, update on the Eswatini Med drama. Court upholds Mazia's authority, and NMC manager farmer has been arrested for corruption.
These are top stories from the Eswatini Observer Sports section. The big story here is no Messi, no handouts as Bull's Eye. Singizini eye big scalp to cement top position, while club CEO Ngobe says they are not expecting favors from Highlanders. On another one, EPBAWA heads to SA for African Championship preparations, while PSG is through to Champions League final after beating Arsenal. And Ngutse pays Felix 18,000 Emalangeni debt, while Super Sunday as Mavuso hosts title chasers.
Moving on to the Eswatini daily news. Leading stories: the government defends Eswatini sovereignty. Some business decisions influenced by external factors to remain relevant on the global business stage. Taiwanese textile investors target Eswatini, and Labour Ministry opens scholarship applications for local and regional studies.
It's a bully Sunday for Nsingizini as capital city giants. Mbabane Highlanders PRO Linton Gule says they will end the noise and do what birds couldn't. And then Patrice Mutsepe is to visit the Kingdom of Eswatini, while Amrim says Manchester United is ready to suffer for the Euro finals.
Right, and that's it for our newspaper headlines. It's 7 minutes after 6. Sibahlele Temagete Sibene Dinzaba. This is what.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Asipenze simukele na Dinzaba. Liphinile ndvunankhulu imphungathu lidladla lithi bukhulu bosweti enkundleni yasembolonjeni miningi mindeni lesatsinga kubanjiswa. Liphinile ndvunankhulu likusho lokhu ngesikhathi lihambela imiti yemiphakathi lesihlanu enkundleni yasembolonjeni libuka imiti letawakhelwa yingwenyama eNkosi Mswati sithathu. Le miti kufanele ibe 10.
Lisachubeka nemsebenti wokubuka abantu labadzala labatawakhelwa tindlu ngekunikelelwa ingwenyama enkundleni yasembolonjeni. Liphini landvunankhulu imphungathu lidladla lithi sive sisaludzinga lusito kakhulu, ikakhulukati bantfu labadzala.
Indzaba vele lefuna ukuthi sisukumele edulu sigijimele siphute lona lwandle lasinika lethuba njalo untibonela nani awukubi sikhanza kwekuthi kuloko lokwaphwanyiswa silo ukuthi kube namkhulu nagogo indzawo letinyenti sekwaba bede bomkhulu labomkhulu bahamba embili angadusi bashakutelelana kusala labomake bese-ke kusala nebatukulu-ke angibathi-ke batukulu ukuthi bangakanani kepha-ke ngoba vele sesifikile noma ngabe sekude mkhulu kufanele ukuthi lokhu inkosi seyisithumile uma sifika kulelo khaya kufanele ukuthi bese siyabona ukuthi siphica ini nani ukuthi sikhona ukuthi sibakhele noma ngaba kusasiyo lendlu leyaphakanyiswa ingwenyama kepha nje sesitholile leminye imiti lelungako ukuthi singakha yona lendlu leyaphakanyiswa ingwenyama nalokunye lesikukhanzile emaswati lamanyenti kulamakhala esihamba kuwo khanza kwekuthi inyenti kakhulu lokungetaphila kahle lokufaka ekhatsi bo autism lokukhanza kwekuthi kufanele ukuthi nabo sibafake kule disability grant leyaphakanyiswa nguye bayethe.
Induna imcuba emphakathi embolonjeni Pawulose Dlamini ibonge Silo ngekunakekela nekutsanza eMaswati.
Moya lento engamuhle kakhulu ngoba ukhuluma kwengonyana emhlaba ekhulumela into lenjenganathi. Awu nathi sibakhona kulenzayo kepha-ke efike emehlwethuka ngoba uhambe ubuke imithi yebantu.
Themkosi Shiba wendzawo yaseLubhuku loyingcenye yalabatfolela usito lwekuthi batokwakhelwa tindlu ubonga emakhosi ngekunakekela bantfu labadzala.
Ubonga lethuba kwenyama lometalo nakwati lokuthi nami ngibe umuntu lofana nebantu bonke okwati kulala endlini ngoba la nginala khona hawu kavuvuza ukuthi inkosi hawu ngiyojabula Dlamini wena lo muthe inkosi.
Nasi isahlanganisa lombiko liphini ilandvunankulu belisachubeka nemsebenti walo kule nkhundla yasembolonjeni. Kubika Thembelihle Magutshwa Kanzangu.
Litiko letemtsetfo selethulele iphalamende umtsetfo lotawubeka libandla lelitawubuka yonke imitsetfo yelive ukuthi ime njani nekuthi isahambisana yini netikhatsi talamuhla. Lo mtsetfo wethulwe indvuna yelitiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfo sisekelo umhlonishwa uMfanenkosi Simelane.
Likomiti libuke kusebenza kwelitiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfosisekelo endlini yabaye esikhulu liholwa lilunga lephalamende lenkundla yakalobamba umhlonishwa Michael Masilela njengasihlalo libambe umhlangano nelitiko letemtsetfo lapho khona indvuna yelitiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfosisekelo umhlonishwa uMfanenkosi Simelane wetfulele likomiti umtsetfo lotawubeka libandla litawubuka yonke imitsetfo yelive ukuthi ime njani ayishayisani yini nekuthi imelana netikhatsi talomuhla ikakhulukati ngoba live solinayo imitsetfo lemidzala. Lelikomiti ke libeze liyaphathisa endvunene.
Umtsetfo lekhona laveli ngicabanga ukuthi miningi kakhulu. Lilungele nganani etindzabeni tetimali ngeva ukuthi ngeva ukuthi kutaba nema donations kwenda lo msebenzi lo nelitiko litawubudgeta lo lokushintsha leminye imitsetfo kona ngoba phela I think kutaba imali lokushintsha lemitsetfo liveli ready.
Chair mina ngicela kubuta ngive minister athi kuleli bandla chairperson kutaba li judge or leli retire. Why kube ngile retire chair sibe sibuka lokho ukuthi phela asekungabuyiswa labantu lasaba retire.
Kuyi sub unit. Kepha lokho selikhulu kangaka selitabanga lelitawucela noma ke lelitawuncikiswa. Kanti phela sisakhalive sendela ukuthi live libonakala emhlabeni esizochasta ishisela lapha sokushiselisela lapha.
Indvuna ibuye netimphendvulo kuleli komiti lelihloniphekile.
Jathi nje soletha ke kini nithi nifungode ngwenyama nikomiti. Ndathi nukubuka ningasho hayi sifunisene kube unit le etiko biselane emuva lapha upheke kuhlata lento yeno hambani lokwenda ibe commission into bane sisingo lento sidavangane che.
Indvuna ivetele iphalamende nekuthi imitsetfo ingumgogodla wentuthuko emnotfo welive bahlanyela imali bayalibalekela live lelidi imitsetfo lehlelekile naletawukhutsa takutsengiselana.
Imitsetfo ngiyo lenta live libe nekuthula libe nehlala kahle phakame netemnotfo ngoba naye umuntu wekuhamba loto ufuna kutshala imali takhe eveni uyawubuka imithetho lo muntu ukuthi ithi
Inhlangano yaka-Commonwealth ngiyo itawubambisa live lase-Eswatini kuleli hlelo lokubuketa lemitsetfo yelive nekucecesha lelibandla litawubuka lo msebenzi. Lobikako nguSamkal Siwekhoza naThemba Shabangu ephalamende.
Somnotfo Thembinkosi Dube uthi uma live lisimeme kwetemtsetfo kusho ukukhula kwemnotfo sukela phansi kubo somabhizinisi labancane. Dube bekakhuluma kulandzela ukuthi indvuna yelitiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfo sisekelo umhlonishwa uMfanenkosi Simelane itfulele iphalamende umtsetfo lotawubona kusungulwa libandla lelitawubuketa imitsetfo yelive ukuthi iyahambisana yini netikhatsi talomuhla.
Imcoka kakhulu ukuthi emabhizinisi noma emnothweni welive ngoba iletha i-confidence noma ngesiciniseko salabo labasemabhizinisini noma labathengiselanako ukuthi nangabe singena kule bhizinisi sakha kumbe sivumelwano sinesiciniseko sokuthi siyasihlonipha. Nangabe kwenteka kube khona lapho silimala khona utawuba khona ukuthi nakufanele siye enkantolo i-judgment itawuba ngile fair noma itawuba ngile ngaphuzu ukuthi umsawa bani noma ngubani. Lokho kuyayiletha i-confidence kusomabhizinisi ukuthi cha kulela livelela ngaya khona i-investe nakunenkinga itawusebentwa ngemithetho nami lengingawufunda ngathi ukuthi ngingakathi mbandakanye nalo hlangothi lebhizinisi kuyangilungela yini noma cha. Umthoka kakhulu nje indaba yetinkantolo indaba yale mithetho ukuthi ibe relevant noma ke ibe hambisana netikhathi umthoka kakhulu emabhizinisini. Siyathi ukuthi cishe onke emabhizinisi abanayo legal office nabangekho legal office akuba ngumuntu abamsebenzisa ngaleso sikhathi ngoba yonke into isebenza ngemithetho. A sound legal system in a country yona yenda ukuthi usomabhizinisi baye lokwenteka kwadinga ukuthi uthuthukisa umnotho wase-MP.
Live laseswatini lisachubeka kahle ekulandzeleleni imigomo yakamhlaba lekhonsako ema-Sustainable Development Goals. Lomelele inhlangano yaka-UNDP kuleli Dr. Nesi uthi nanome kunjalo kusekuningi lokumele kwendiwe. Bekakhuluma ehhotela The George ngalesithathu emhlanganweni lobuka ukuthi live selihambe kanganani kulamagoli.
Lo mhlangano bewufaka ekhathi bomasipala betempilo belihhovisi leliPhinland Nankulu naletinye-ke tinhlangothi kanti-ke bekubukwa ukuthi selikuphi live laseswatini endzabeni yemigomo yentuthuko lekhonsako yakamhlaba langema-Sustainable Development Goals. Dr. Nesi Nolakhayi Gold wenhlangano yaka-UNDP uthi laseswatini lisada kahle impela kodwa-ke kunenge lekusamele likwende lokufaka ekhathi ukuthi liqinise netinye tinhlelo njengoba sekudude kufika kweminyaka wa-2030 ekungumnyaka lowabekwa ukuthi emave abe sekawashayile lawo magoli lebekiwe.
The progress has been mixed. We've seen some excellent improvements in terms of healthcare, around HIV, around women's participation, but there's still a lot more to be done.
Uthi-ke live laseswatini lende kahle etinhlelweni letifaka ekhatsi te-HIV tekulingana kutebulili nalokunye ngako-ke nguloyo naloyo akadlele inzima yakhe ekutheni live lishayela amagoli ngalokubhekekile. Uthi laseswatini-ke likulamanye emave lasikhombisa emaveni langu-39 lese lethule kusebenta kwalo kumhlabuhlangene lokuyintfo lenhle impela ingani lamanye emave wona asangakakhoni kwetfula kusebenta kwawo. Uthi-ke lokukhulu kucinisekisa ukuthi kude loshiwa ngemuva etindzabeni tentuthuko. Mabhalane lomkhulu etiko letekuhlela umnotfo nentuthuko Thapsile Mlangeni uveta kubaluleka kwalo mhlangano.
Kunamatiko ahulumende latsindzekako konke lama-SDGs ngilabo batawubuka ukuthi cha uma sithi ka-health maternal mortality inciphile kangaka vele scapturation njengoba kunjalo yini le ndlela lekungiyo yona so that we all own lo msebenzi lesesiwendile. Lokutawendeka-ke utawuthi ngaphuma le report le final bese iyawethulwa kamhlaba. Kulo mnyaka sine silive laseswatini sesethula kwesithathu, which is a milestone achievement for us.
Kungumanje-ke live lisalungiswa lenye futhi ipoti letawethulwa khona kumhlabuhlangene kutemathutane nje ngekusebenta kwelive kuto tindzaba tema-Sustainable Development Goals. Lobikako nguGiyani Msibi ngisehhotela Lady George Kamanzini.
Imvuna yelitiko letemfundvo umhlonishwa owenxumalo ithi leli tiko ngekubambisana nenhlangano yemave alabamhlophe liqinisa tinhlelo tekutfutfukisa temfundvo lephakeme. Imvuna ithi ngalolu hlelo lelatiwa nge-Erasmus Plus emanyuvesi yakuleli atawushiyelana nalugwayi nemanyuvesi langephansi kwenhlangano yemave alabamhlophe.
Kuchubeka nethuthukisa temfundo lephakeme kuleli lihhovisi lalonxusele inhlangano emavala abamhlophe nelitiko letemfundo libambe umhlangano wetinhlangothi letitsinsekako kutemfundo lephakeme kothula lihlelo litawubona kushelana kweligwayi kwemanyuvesi akuleli nalawo emave langaphansi kwenhlangano emavala abamhlophe. Indvuna yetiko letemfundo umhlonishwa owenxumalo uthi ngalo hlelo live laseSwatini litawuzuza kakhulu kanti bekamelwe ngumabhalane lomncane kuleli tiko lungelonhlengethwa.
Sifuna kona i-collaboration sibe nebudlelwane nabo nebafunzi bala kangwane nema-universities ala kangwane ukuthi bakhone nabo ukuthi kukhwezi kutholako le e-Europe nabo bekhona bakutholako la kithi kangwane. Sendela ukuthi uma bathi nje lapha kunema-programs la ngayicala kuyifunza la kangwane achubeka uyifunza e-Europe ayicedzele khona noma biza bayicedzela kangwane khona kuthiwa ufunzile i-program yakhe i-international recognized yatiwa mhlaba wonke kanti uyitholela kangwane so basi iba relevant to the whole world.
Lonxusele inhlangano emavala abamhlophe kuleli uthi ngalolu hlelo lenhlangano ihlose kuthuthukisa imave livekahle e-Afrika kutemfundo lephakeme.
We as the EU firmly believe in the transformative power of education. And the Erasmus Plus program is a key initiative of our international cooperation in this field.
Uthi le nhlangano kuleli hlelo ihlela imali lengu-26 billion wema-euro letawusekela imisebenzi yalolu hlelo iminyaka lesithupha. Kanti emakolishi, emanyuvesi netikolo temakhono kubheke ukuthi bacale bashelane lugwayi netinhlelo tetemfundo masinyane ngaphansi kwalo lolu hlelo. Lobikako nguSamkel Suekhoza naThemba Shabangu eMbabane.
Lijaji lenkantolo yemacala eTisebenti Industrial Court Dumsile Faith Dlamini lithi inkampani Eswatini Med beyingeke besemseni iransom yaloyo bekangusihlalo welibandla labacondzisi Eswatini Med Semi Dlamini lowehluleka kubita umhlangano walelibandla. Lijaji libese likhipha sijubo sekuthi lenkantolo ifanele kulalela sicelo lesifakwe Eswatini Med sekuthi lenkantolo iphocelele umphathi weSwatini Med Peter Samora Simelane ukuthi ahloniphe kumiswa kwakhe emsebentini.
Lijaji lithi ngemva kwekubuka ubufakazi betfuliwe enkantolo linaka ukuthi kubita umhlangano akusiko lokwentiwa ngusihlalo kuphela njengalokho ehluleka lo sihlalo kubita lo mhlangano. Lijaji lithi ngemva kwekuthi lo sihlalo loSemi Dlamini ehluleke kubita lo mhlangano lelibandla lebacondzisi lase libita umhlangano 1918 enyangeni yeNdlovulenkulu kulomnyaka losetulo. Lijaji lingeta ngekuthi lo mhlangano lo wachubeka kanti futhi inombolo lebawungenele bayivuma ukuthi bongachubeka lo mhlangano iquorum. Lijaji lithi kulo mhlangano lo kwakhethwa bhekumaziya ukuthi abambe kuba ngusihlalo weSwatini Med. Lijaji lithi wagunyatwa ngulo mhlangano lona-ke emaziya ukuthi bekangaletha lendzaba lesenkantolo. Lijaji linaka ukuthi Simelane uphikise amandla emcashi wakhe kuletha lendzaba enkantolo kodwa kayiteki indzaba yekumiswa kwakhe emsebentini abahola liholo liphelele. Lijaji lichubeka lithi umcashi unawo amandla ekusesha kungatiphathi kahle kwesisebenti. Lijaji lithi akusuka umsebenti walenkantolo ukuthi ibuka inqubo yokusebenta etinkampaneni. Lijaji lithi ngaleso sizathu indzaba yokuthi Eswatini Med ide amandla kuletha lendzaba enkantolo iyayichitha. Lijaji lingeta ngekuthi libandla lebacondzisi lasebentise amandla alo kubita lo mhlangano wamhla ka-18 enyangeni yeNdlovulenkulu kulomnyaka losetulo. Lijaji lithi endzabeni yokuthi lendzaba lefana nale ichubeka enkantolo lenkulu iyayichitha. Lijaji lithi isizathu salokhu ukuthi kulendzaba lesenkantolo lenkulu lendzaba yamikiswa ibhizinisi eSwatini kanti labaphendvulako nguSimelane kanye nasihlalo Dlamini. Lijaji lithi abafani ke labantu labete enkantolo kuleti indzaba timbili njengalokhu leli sembi kwayo kude eSwatini Med kanti lophendvulako nguSimelane. Lijaji libese lithi labameli abahambe bayokuva kulabamelele ukuthi bayachubeka nalendzaba kule nkantolo noma cha. Lijaji lithi ababuye labameli nating5 kule nyanga letako bayitoyatisa ukuthi basachubeka nalendzaba ukuthi itekwe ngile nkantolo. Simelane umelele ngommeli wakhe Sabela Dlamini kanti eSwatini Med imelele ngommeli wayo uMphilisi Mtshali. Lobikako uFortune Dlangamandla ngisenkantolo yemacala eTisebenti.
Eminyakeni leyimfica leyengcile emabhizinisi lahamba imbili we-Entrepreneur of the Year Awards akhonile kwakha imali lengetulu kwa-102 million emalangeni. Lokhu kuvetwe ngumxhumanisi enkampanini yakaSedco lekungiyona ibukelo umsebenzi nakachaza ukuthi lo mncintiswano wathuthukisa kanganani emabhizinisi kuleli.
Njengoba sekuphele iminyaka lengu-19 umncintiswano we-Entrepreneur of the Year wasungulwa, sikhulumisene nenkampani yaka-Sedco kuva ukuthi lo mncintiswano sewusite bosomabhizinisi labangakanani futhi kanjani.
Winners efo akhulile from 2013 to 2024, which is 9 years back, we have about 162 labakhulile for which is the cash prizes for those years. And during those years, we have gotten also the grand prize, which is the car. And the growth in terms of employment creation, which is one of the biggest issues in the country. Business so that we curb the unemployment in the country. So statistics about 1,326 jobs have been created. Business for 9 years. Siyayibona ukuthi ijake ku-2.5 million ngiyoke labayitfolile bosomabhizinisi labakhonako ukuthi bayi-reinveste kulamabhizinisi abo. Ngiko-ke sibona ukuthi lamabhizinisi vele ayakhula impela, siyabona ngale employment ukuthi i-createkile because of le reinvestment labayitfolako kuleli hlelo.
Umxhumanisi waka-Sedco uphinde wachaza ukuthi iqinisekisa ukuthi amabhizinisi lasetindzaweni letisemimangweni nawo ayakhona kungenela lo mncintiswano batawuwafundzisa kabanti ngawo. Lobikako nguNelson Dlangamandla, nginavuma inkosi Nzinisa eMbabane.
Kude live leSwatini litawuba sesigabeni lesikahle sekukhanga abahlanyeli imali labatawakha emabhizinisi lakhonsako futhi labadala tisebenzi kakhulu kufanele likhone kutikicitela gesi lowanele. Mengameli webusiness eSwatini Mvuselelo Fakutse uthi inkampani letitimele tifaka onke amandla ukuthi itesekele imisebenzi lehlose ukuqinisekisa lokho.
Lokumcoka ke kulive ukuthi liphehle gesi. Ngoba gesi ngiyena akhona ukuthi laba labafuna ukungena ku manufacture noma ku agro processing noma lokwana lokho cishe kudzinga gesi tinto letiningi. Manje uma ngabe sibatshela ukuthi gesi wethu simthenga kulamanye amave vele batawufaka amandla, batawungena ngemandla ematfolweni. Sithi-ke sitawubanika tfolo locina ukuthi nathi silive sifake imali tonke lesinato ukuthi live khona ekuphehla gesi walo. Batosima bato-investa lana babona ukuthi live liyakuphehlela gesi walo. Kusho ukuthi i-electricity supply angeke ibe inkinga, ngakho-ke bakhona ku-investa ema-long term projects abo letawucreate imisebenzi letawuholela ngcono even leMaswati. Cishe onke amabhange vele isektor la ibukako le yekuphehla gesi at a national level siyavumelana ukuthi indzaba yekuphehla gesi indzaba lemcoka eSwatini. Ngakho-ke singemabhange kufuna simsupport uhulumende nalabo laba private sector players labafuna ukubuka tindlela ukuthi bangaphehla kanjani. Ngiyathi nje cishe onke amabhange involved ku finance lama solar panels lakhona even onke amabhange involved kusite ama-farmers ukuthi akhone kuphampa emanti makanisela umoba basebenzise ema-solar panels.
Hulumende sewusigcinile sithembiso sakhe sekulungisa tikolwa njengoba avedile itinyanga letimbalwa letengcile ukuthi tonke tikolwa letingekho esimeni sikahle utawutilungisa. Sikolwa lesincane saseFontaine Mbabane lesinye setikolwa lebesingekho esimeni sikahle sesicalile kulungiswa inkampani yahulumende ye-Micro Projects.
Hulumende ngakusebenzisa inkampani leluphiko lwakho lekuyi-Micro Projects usemkhankasweni wokulungisa tikolwa kanzi-ke kungumanje ulungisa lesinye setikolwa letiselihlelweni lesikolwa lesincane saseFontaine letakhiwa takhona bese tingekho esimeni lesikahle. Lokhu-ke kufaka ekhatsi ne-administration block yaso-ke lesikolwa. Kungumanje-ke luthuli lisukile takhiwa kabusha leto tindlu tekufundzela. Kanzi-ke umphathi walesikole Sifiso Mabuza uthi bafaka sicelo sokulungiselwa emaklasi kanzi-ke sekuyakhiwa-ke nanoma kwanyalo labanye bafundzi basebenzisa emaklasi njengoba maningi lebekadzinga kulungiswa bafundzela ndzawonye.
Cishe emaklasi la affectekile mane lokufaka ekhatsi ne-administration block. Si affectekile ke impela ngabo bantfwana ngoba inyalo nje sitikhanza ukuthi bese double stream. Emaklasi lamanyenti lafaka ekhatsi grade 2 3 kuze kube grade 5 bayawasherisha nyalo ama-class lokusho ukuthi sesibahlanganisile vele sekulukhuni-ke kufundza kwabo akusesiko loko lokutayelekile kepha kona kuyinteka sisesengalitfoli-ke lusito lapho msakati kule tindlu tangasense sisathandaza saphindze futhi siyacela kuto tihlobo sebhekile kwekuthi baphindze basikhumbule kuze sikhone ukuthi sibe nato tindlu lelisezingeni lelifanele bantfwana bakhone kusebenza kahle nabo.
Umcondziswa ka-Micro Project Sibusiso Mbingo sikhuluma naye ngelicingo uthi tikolwa tatfaka ticelo tokuthi tilungiselwe lawo maklasi lebewalimele.
Cishe tikolwa titsinzekile tiyeta ku-54 cishe live lonke letatsinzeka ngalo January litiko temfundo-ke liphuma umkhankaso wekulungisa itikolo kungaba nje kubuya ukuthi kahoko tikolwa tatsinzeka ting-11 kamanzini tikolwa tatsinzeka ting-9 elibonjeni tikolwa tatsinzeka ting-19 ishiselwe ina-15 wetikolo tatsinzeka sekuphele tonke tikolo titame kulungiswa litiko temfundo ting-54 setonke tikolwa-ke ibhajethi-ke ingetulu kwa-20 million lesingathi mhlawumbe litiko temfundo libeke eceleni ukuthi kulungiswe letikolo taphephuka.
Uthi kahulumende utawuchubeka vele nekuyibeka impili indzaba yokuthi leto tikolwa letinemaklasi lasangekho esimeni lesikahle avuswe kabusha lokukhomba kona ukuthi temfundo hulumende utibeka phambili. Lobikako ngugiyani Msibi ngisefontaine.
Inkantolo lenkulu inike umsolwa lobhekene nemacala langu-20 abofacata imvume yokutokela ngephandle lebita imali lengu-50,000 amalangeni. Umsolwa longusanele Velimbingo lemvume yokutokela ngaphandle uyinikwe lijaji lelikhulu lenkantolo lenkulu Kusile Mabuza.
Esicelweni sakhe sokutokela ngephandle umsolwa sanele Velimbingo wathi inkantolo ukuthi kulamacala angu-20 labhekene nawo afaya ekhathe kweba ngekukhohlisa kwephula umthetho lwana necala obuhleliwe emacala kwephula umthetho lwana ekushushumbisa imali kanye nemacala kwephula umthetho lwana ngecala lobenteka ngeteciko. Umsolwa uthi nakambophe emaphoyisa amshaya ngaleso sizathu sowahlala evabhlungu emgogodleni aphinze futhi ashayela inhloko lematima ngaleto sizathu futhi ucela kuyotokela ngephandle. Umsolwa uchubeka uthi esitokisini ulalisa esiceshini serabha isiliyoni nesibanza mpo uthi umbathatha ingotshana letimbili nanato letigcwele tinvala. Umsolwa ukhala ngekugcwala esitokisini lagcinwe kiso usiletimo leti tingambangela kugula lokufaya ekhathe isifo semakhada umsheko iBP kubala kuletinye tifo. Umbuso usiphikisile isicelo sebsolwa sekutokela ngephandle. Umbuso uthi limatima lelicala labhekene nalo umsolwa liphoyisa lelisesha lelicala lemsolwa lokungusibongiseni Vilakati ukhala ngekuthi amaphoyisa asachubeka kubopha bomsolwa emaceleni abofacata ngakho angeke kulunge ukuthi akhululwe umsolwa. Ngesikhathi lento lesijubo salo lijaji lelikhulu enkantolo lenkulu Kusile Mabuza lithi liyanaka ukuthi umsolwa waboshwa na-19 enyangeni yeNgongoni eminyakeni lophelile. Lijaji lithi liyanaka futhi ukuthi isolwa waboshwa umsolwa solwa kakanikwe emalanga ekuteka kwelicala lakhe. Lijaji lithi ekwati kwalo emacala kumele aboteka ngekushesha kude kuphume tijubo letifanele kulabasolwa ngekweba imali ngekufacatisa. Lijaji libese lithi kule mali engu-50,000 emalangeni ekutokela ngephandle umsolwa akabhadala imali engu-5,000 emalangeni bese leleselele engu-45,000 emalangeni ibasibambiso. Umsolwa umelwe ngummeli wakhe Mathokoza Mpamali. Lobikako umfortune Dlangamandla ngisenkantolo lenkulu.
Kutemidlalo indvuna yetemidlalo ithi litiko litimisele ukubambisa abafunzi ukuthi basachubeka nemsebenzi wesikolo baphindze bavulelwe tinhlelo letahlukene tekushukumisa umtimba. Indvuna lebemelelwe ngumabhalane lomncane walelitiko Mzwandile Mthethwa bekhuluma eMedical Christian University ngesikhathi lenyuvesi ligubha iminyaka lengu-12 yabakhona.
Eswatini Christian Medical University bebamba umcimbi wekugubha iminyaka lengamashumi yabakhona kanzi lenyuvasi ithathele lilanga elisebenzisa ekhuthateni bafundzi ukuthi basachubeka netifundvo tabo abaphindze banaka indzaba yekushukumisa umtimba baphindze bativocavoce. Ikhuluma kulomcimbi indvuna yetemidlalo lebeyimelele ngumabhalane lomncane kulolitiko letemidlalo Mzwandile Mthethwa uthi litiko litimisele kubambisa abafundzi lapho khona badzinga lusito kutemidlalo.
Lesikhutsata silitiko ngulokuthi sibe physically fit
kuyasisita ke nekuklearisha ingqondo ikakhulu awufunza nje u-student uyaye ukhanzele ukuthi kuba nalawo ma-pressures lachamukako academically kepha naso uphume ngaphandle ngena lapha emgwacweni ngena lapha egroundini utivocavoce utawubona umphumela waloko kuclearisha ingqondo yakho ukhona nokuthi mhlawumbeni naso ubuyela kuyawudadisha utikhanze nemambala sekuyahambeka sekuyafunzeka so uyak-understanda naloku lokufunzile.
Sebenta Menom longumabhalane wale nyuvesi uthi kumcoka ukuthi tifundvo tihambisane nekushukumisa umtimba.
Lo nyaka sidecide ukuyicelebrate ngema-sports njengoba nje singathiwe ngu-representative wa-Minister of Sports, Culture and Youth Affairs lana sitocucuta abantwana bafunzi ukuthi abaparticipate kuma-sports. Ama-students yawa-encourage kakhulu lokuthi akashukumisa umtimba ngoba le university offerisha timfundo te-health so i-health isipromota nalokhu ushukumisa lo mtimba so that to avoid any illnesses.
Abafunzi nabo balitholile lithuba lekuchaza bomcoka ekushukumisa wona umtimba.
Kumcoka kakhulu ngoba kuyasita ukuthi sirefreshe nemcondo sikhona ukuthi nasifunza imicondvo yethu ikhaliphile.
Kumcoka very because it can't be all about education nekwanelwati. We need to have fun sometimes and enjoy ourselves.
Okay, kusita ukuthi ingqondo yakho ibe khona ube-engage kusho kona ukuthi uyakhona uba sports active phindze futhi naseklasini uperforma kangcono if you exercise your body.
Njengoba basho bathi a healthy body is a healthy mind. Kumqoka ukuthi sibantu labasha nabantu labadala sishukumise umtimba phindze sifunze njengoba basho nebaka health ukuze sibe nempilo lenze singaguli singabi netifo letifaka ikhathi nje tifo daboshukela and other chronic illnesses.
Lemidlalo leyayidlalo kule nyuvesi kungunyalo ifaka ikhathi umdlalo webhola letinyawo umdlalo wesibhakela i-netball ne-chess kuleminye. Lobikako uLinda Dlamini kanzombi kuhlanganisa nguFabrice Msonera eMbabane.
Dodo imidlalo sitibeka lapho tindzaba tetfu sibahlole temakethe sidaba esichubeke nehlelo.
Lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi
aba-researche bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi funa sento ukukhicita lokusembili.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's now shift our focus to the United Nations. Addressing the Security Council, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said that preventing and stopping war, upholding peace and security, that is the Security Council's mandate. That is their primary responsibility and one that this body has chronically failed to live up to.
For several years, the Security Council has been kind enough to invite me regularly to share my views regarding the global situation of refugees and other persons pursuant to the HCR mandate. Therefore, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you for inviting me yet again here, and quite likely this is the last time as the High Commissioner for Refugees. Thank you for inviting me under the auspices of the French presidency. This is a useful practice which is part of your procedures, and I encourage you to continue with it.
This is a season of war. This is a time of crisis. From Sudan to Ukraine, from the Sahel to Myanmar, from the Democratic Republic of Congo to Haiti, violence has become the defining currency of our age. While UNHCR is not part of the United Nations response in Gaza, the situation of civilians there, which we thought could not get worse, is reaching new levels of desperation by the day. I realize I'm not telling the member of this council anything you do not already know, which is an indictment in itself. But unfortunately, that is the reality of our world. One where, according to the International Committee of the Red Cross, 120 conflicts rage unabated. Each one of them fueled by the same perverse yet powerful delusion that peace is for the weak, that the only way to end war is not through negotiation but by inflicting so much pain on your enemies that they're left with two choices: to surrender or to be annihilated. And so, blinded by the idea that only total military victory will do, it should come as no surprise that the norms of international humanitarian law, once held in respect, or at least proclaimed to be, protecting civilians, upholding the neutrality of humanitarian actors, allowing the most basic aid to reach people under siege, are cast aside, dismissed as easily as the thousands of lives destroyed in the pursuit of supremacy. As Pope Francis said, I quote, "Every war represents not only a defeat of politics, but also a shameful surrender," unquote. He is gone, sadly, but his words remain more urgent than ever. Preventing and stopping war, upholding peace and security, this is the Security Council's mandate. This is your primary responsibility, and one that, you will forgive me for again saying it, this body has chronically failed to live up to. But please, do not resign yourselves to the defeat of diplomacy. I speak to you today once more on behalf of the 123 million people forcibly displaced, who are among the first victims of wars, and in many ways the most visible symptom of conflict and persecution. Caught in devastating situations, they have sought safety, or at least attempted to. But they will continue to hope for a safe return. And they, I know, will not be resigned and will not want us to be. Like the people of Sudan, 1/3 of whom have been displaced since the start of the conflict 2 years ago. 1 out of every 3 people forced to flee their homes because of a situation that, frankly, defies description: the indiscriminate violence, disease, starvation, rampant sexual atrocities, flooding, droughts. A country and a society torn apart in a context where all pretense of adherence to humanitarian norms has been abandoned. I was in Chad earlier this month, at the border with Sudan. I met women and children who had just arrived from embattled El Fasher and Zamzam. They reported horrors, but above all, fear. Civilians in Darfur are regularly blocked from fleeing dangerous areas. Worse, they're actively targeted. You will have seen recent reports of attacks against civilians in and around displacement camps, where delivering aid is not only a security and logistical challenge, as it is in the rest of the country, but also a bureaucratic nightmare intertwined with toxic politics. That is why it was so significant that those same families telling me their stories, pointed at the border and said that crossing it, in spite of all hardships they knew they would endure, meant leaving at least that fear behind. No better testament to the life-saving power of asylum. As the number of displaced Sudanese continues to grow, humanitarians have sounded the alarm about the terrible human cost exacted from the Sudanese people and from their future. Warning also, as I did again at the London conference only a few days ago, that the consequences of this conflict have now spread well beyond Sudan's borders, and especially to those countries which collectively host more than 3 million Sudanese refugees from Egypt, Ethiopia, Uganda, to the Central African Republic. The most impacted are Chad and South Sudan, which face enormous challenges of their own besides the refugee influx, but that have kept their borders open despite vastly insufficient humanitarian financing. The latest regional refugee appeal is only 11% funded. Yet the needs are enormous. Refugees arrive with nothing and are given a fraction of what is required because of declining aid funding, plus whatever Chadian communities near the border can afford. The authorities, the Chadian authorities, are sparing no effort. Chadian refugee laws and policies are among the most progressive in the world. What they lack are resources, so they can continue receiving refugees. We cannot leave them alone. Because there is nothing inevitable, Mr. President, about the decision to host, protect, and assist refugees. Much less welcoming responses to displacement in much wealthier countries clearly show that. All countries make choices, and you have heard me disagree with many. In this instance, refugee-receiving countries are making the right decision. They are doing their part. We, the humanitarians, are on the ground doing our part. You must be more committed and more united to do yours. Every day that passes without the parties to the Sudan conflict coming to the negotiating table makes the war worse. Makes the war more complicated too. Refugees talk of not just two parties, but of a proliferation of local militias loosely affiliated to the main actors perpetrating violent abuse. This deadly confusion is a feature of modern wars. We should have learned lessons from wars in the Democratic Republic of Congo or Afghanistan, whose spillover consequences many members of this Council still contend with to this day. Because if the current dynamics, resigned powerlessness and dwindling aid do not change, then let us harbor no illusions. The Sudan war's destabilizing effects will grow, including the onward movement of people. There are already more than 200,000 Sudanese in Libya today, many of whom may travel towards Europe. Mr. President, I also watch with great concern, like you, I'm sure, the latest developments in Ukraine, a country that I have visited 6 times since 2022. As recently as January, I was in Kiev and Sumy, cities that have again suffered devastating attacks just in the last few days. I saw the terrible toll this war continues to take on the Ukrainian people, and especially on the most vulnerable, the elderly, children, families, whose resilience, nevertheless, remains admirable, even as it has grown wary. UNHCR works closely with the government and local civil society partners to help alleviate the suffering and bring some normalcy and hope to people's lives. But clearly, as said by many, what people need is a just peace. My role is not to describe what it looks like, but to remind all those engaged in peace efforts not to forget the plight of more than 10 million displaced Ukrainians, 7 million of whom are refugees. It is crucial to continue to plan for their eventual return to their communities. But they will not return unless they can be safe and secure in the short and in the long term, unless the sirens truly stop announcing incoming attacks, unless they have access to decent housing, services and work, and unless they are confident that the terms of peace are durable for them and for their country. That is the essential calculus for ending humanitarian and refugee crisis, Mr. President. Security and self-reliance, and both must convey a sense of being durable. Solutions are hard work. They require commitment and compromise. You cannot make peace passively or hope for it to happen through mere attrition. That is why it is all the more important that when even unexpected opportunities emerge, we must be ready to seize them and be ready to take calculated risks. For the last 8 years, for example, stagnation has defined the response in Myanmar. The fighting between the Tatmadaw and different armed groups has caused immense suffering and large-scale displacement throughout the country and the region, a situation exacerbated by the terrible earthquake that struck a month ago. The plight of the Rohingya minority in particular has become even worse. Fighting in Rakhine State with the Arakan army has been particularly vicious. 1.2 million Rohingya are refugees today, mostly in Bangladesh, in the camps around Cox's Bazar. And we must thank Bangladesh and its people for having provided them refuge over the years. But Rohingya refugees languish in the camps without work, deprived of agency, entirely dependent on humanitarian aid, which grows ever more precarious. Half the refugee population is under the age of 18. They are, to paraphrase Chief Advisor Dr. Yunus, disconnected from opportunity but connected to the world through the internet. Is it any wonder that many feel compelled to embark on dangerous sea journeys in pursuit of opportunity, or that those looking to recruit fighters find fertile soil? But there is now an opportunity to break this dangerous inertia. The interim government of Bangladesh has chosen to engage with the parties to the conflict in Rakhine State in pursuit of a solution there, where it rightly lies. Many will immediately say that such a solution today is impossible for all the reasons we know. Too much blood has been shed, discrimination continues, and there are too many competing interests to balance. Many will say that the root causes will never be effectively addressed, and that may well be the case. But we have been down the path of stagnation for 8 years in respect of the Rohingya situation. It is a dead end. From the perspective of pursuing solutions to the Rohingya plight, and in order to start recreating conditions for the return of refugees, dialogue with all parties is a critical first step, so that humanitarian agencies, including UNHCR, can re-establish their presence and resume providing desperately needed humanitarian relief safely and freely. That, in turn, would provide a basis on which to restart discussions on the eventual return of displaced Rohingya. I stress voluntarily, in safety and dignity, once the security situation in Rakhine allows, and from where other legal rights could also be pursued. It is a long shot, for sure, but I urge you to think out of the box and take some risks. I hope the Council will continue to focus robustly on the situation in Myanmar, including the plight of the Rohingya, and I look forward to the conference planned for September here in New York. Mr. President, other possible turning points are visible literally even from here. On Friday, the new flag of Syria was raised at the United Nations. What a powerful symbol for all Syrians. And there we have another long-standing humanitarian and displacement crisis for which an unexpected solution may now be achievable. But to pursue that, you must all prioritize the Syrian people over long-standing politics, some of which are frankly outdated. That also entails taking calculated risks. Of course, we cannot be naive. Many challenges remain, and you heard Minister Shaibani describe them here on Friday. It is impossible to overcome the devastation caused by 14 years of war in a few months. But for the first time in decades, there is a spark of hope, including for the millions of Syrians who remain displaced today, 4.5 million of them refugees in neighboring countries. Since the 8th of December, those numbers have been decreasing slowly but steadily as the return movement of internally displaced Syrians grow, and we observe an increase of returns also from Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. We estimate that over 1 million people have already returned, and based on what recent surveys show, many more may follow. Whether they will then stay in Syria or, tragically, move again, including to Europe and beyond, depends, of course, on the authorities, but also very much on your willingness to take risks, to ease sanctions, seriously support early recovery, spur investment by the private sector and others. In a word, create conditions so that the basic elements of dignified life, security, water, electricity, education, economic opportunities are available to the Syrian people as they start to rebuild their communities. To minimize the risks that returning Syrians are taking, I'm asking you to take some risks yourselves, political and economic ones. And yes, that must also mean sustained and more significant humanitarian aid, which at the moment, like everywhere else, is decreasing sharply. Mr. President, I would in fact be remiss before concluding if I did not draw the Council's attention on the critical situation of aid funding. In the precise moment where there is hope to finally move towards solutions to several displacement crises, not only in Syria, but also in Burundi or the Central African Republic, we see a retrenchment away from aid, away from multilateralism, even away from life-saving assistance. We hear of prioritizing national interests, of boosting defense spending, all valid concerns, of course, and legitimate state pursuits. But these are not incompatible with aid, quite the contrary. And so I find myself making the same argument time after time, trying to convince donor countries of a reality we can all clearly see, that aid is stability. Freezing or cutting aid budgets is already having fatal consequences on millions of lives. It means, among many other things, abandoning displaced people to their fate, taking support away from sometimes very fragile host countries, and ultimately undermining your own stability. And multilateralism, in fact, including multilateral aid, adds to the same stability and remains indispensable to find solutions to crises, including forced displacement. I may sound anachronistic, Mr. President, but after more than 40 years as a humanitarian and almost 10 years in my current job, I continue to believe that it is by sitting at the same table that all voices can be heard, the strong and the less strong. And to those who feel that multilateralism is stifling, slow, and misaligned with your priorities, I hope you realize that leaving the debate does not mean that the discussion would end. It will not, but it will be less effective and less compelling. We need all of you. Refugees offer one of the best examples of this shared task. Because if you look around this room, you will see, like I do, that forced displacement has concerned every member of the Security Council at one point, one way or the other. The struggle for freedom, the fight against oppression, the imperative to leave one's home behind because of war, violence and persecution, the refuge given to those compelled to flee. These are also familiar strands in each of your country's histories, deeply woven in complex and unique ways into your traditions and values. You have been the refugee. You have welcomed those who sought refuge. Now, you sit at this table with the responsibility to end war, to bring peace, and you must succeed. You owe it not only to all those who are displaced and who count on you, you also owe it to yourselves.
All right, and that's it from the United Nations Security Council. It's 7:07. We go for a short break and come back with the news.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Two minutes after 7, thank you for staying with us. This is the English News. The Ministry of Justice has presented a law reform and development bill that will establish a law reform office and the law reform committee comprising legal experts, stakeholders, as well as representatives to spearhead reforms. Now, the bill was presented to Parliament by the Honourable Minister of Justice, Prince Simelane.
The Ministry of Justice Portfolio Committee in the House of Assembly, led by Lubamba Member of Parliament Michael Masilela as the chairperson, held a meeting with the Minister of Justice, where the Honourable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs Prince Simelane made the first reading of the Law Reform and Development Bill, followed by a debate from the Honourable members.
Lilungele nganani etindzabeni tetimali ngeva tsi lo ngeva kutsi taba nema donations kwenda lo msebenzi lo nelitiko litawubudgeta lo lokushintsha leminye imitsetfo kona ngoba phela I think taba imali lokushintsha lemitsetfo live ready.
Chair, mina ngicela kubuta ngive minister athi kuleli bandla chairperson itaba li judge or leli retire. Why kube ngeli retire chair? Sibe sibuka lokho ukuthi phela asekungabuyiswa labantu lasaba retire.
Kuyi sub unit. Kepha lokho silekhulu kangaka selitaba lelitawucela noma ke litawuncikiswa kanti phela sisakhalive sendela ukuthi live libonakala emhlabeni sesizechaza ishisela lapha sikushiselise lapha.
The Honourable Minister responded to the debate.
Jathi nje soletha ke kini nithi infungo tengwenyama ni committee ndathi nukubuka ningasho hayi sifunisile kube unit le etiko biselane emuva lapha kupheke kuhlata lento yeno.
He says the Kingdom of Eswatini recognizes the need for a modern, just and efficient legal system that aligns with constitutional principles and international standards. The Honourable Minister also said strong legal frameworks are key to driving economic growth and that laws plays a critical role in attracting investment and ensuring economic stability.
Imithetho ngiyo le yenta live libe nekuthula libe nehlala kahle phakame netemnotho.
He says a sound legal system is not just a matter of justice, but a pillar of sustainable economic development. He says when laws are predictable and fairly applied, businesses are more likely to invest, whereas the Commonwealth will provide technical support to ensure success of this project. Reporting, Samgal Siwekoza and Temba Shabangu, Parliament.
Eswatini is still on the right track in meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the resident UNDP Deputy Representative in Eswatini, Dr. Nessie Nolakai, says there's still a lot that needs to be done before 2030. She was speaking at the voluntary local review meeting that is aimed at looking at the progress of Eswatini in meeting the SDGs. The meeting was held at the George Hotel on Wednesday.
The voluntary local review program included municipalities, members from the Deputy Prime Minister's office, the health sector, amongst others. The main objective is to discuss how far has Eswatini gone in achieving the stipulated Sustainable Development Goals. Dr. Nessie Nolakai from UNDP says Eswatini is doing quite well. However, there's still a lot that still needs to be done.
The progress has been mixed. We've seen some excellent improvements in terms of healthcare, around HIV, around women's participation, but there's still a lot more to be done. We are quite happy that to hear local voices, with municipalities being here to reflect really what is going on in the communities, what are the issues, what are the hardships, and how can they be a part of ensuring that the National Development Plan and indeed the Sustainable Development Goals can be achieved at the community level.
Tapsile Mlangeni, the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development, says they gather stakeholders in order to get their input and how far they are working on the goals.
The main objective here is to ensure that no one is left behind. So that is the special part of the voluntary national review that we are going to have this year. It is integrating the local level. This is not the first time the country is presenting a report to the United Nations on progress on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. The first time was in 2019, and we presented the report the second time in 2022, and this is the third time. We are one of 7 countries in the whole world that are presenting their report for the third time.
The country is currently working on a report which will be presented before the UN. Reporting, I am Kian MCB at the George Hotel in Manzini.
The Honourable Minister of Education, Owen Nxumalo, says the government, in partnership with the European Union, is expanding educational and cultural opportunities for local higher learning institutions. Now, the Honourable Minister was speaking during an information session of the Erasmus Plus program with local higher learning stakeholders, where he was represented by the school's manager, Lungelo Nhlengetwa.
The European Union Eswatini office, in partnership with the Ministry of Education and Training, held an information session with the higher education stakeholders on the Erasmus Plus program, which has been developed to meet needs for institutions. The Honourable Minister of Education, Owen Nxumalo, represented by the school's manager, Lungelo Nhlengetwa, said this program responds to the country's drive of inclusive and sustainable education.
It opens the door for our institutions to tap into new opportunities for international collaboration, students and staff mobility, and capacity building. And third, it signals our collective intent to build a more globally connected and competitive education system. Across Europe, Africa, and beyond, Erasmus Plus has empowered young people, strengthened institutions, and built bridges between nations. It is our hope that Eswatini, too, will begin to benefit more meaningfully from this program.
EU Ambassador to Eswatini said this program is aimed at creating entrepreneurial universities in Eswatini.
We as the EU firmly believe in the transformative power of education. And the Erasmus Plus program is a key initiative of our international cooperation in this field. With a budget of over 26 billion euro for the current program cycle, which runs from 2021 to 2027.
Local higher learning institutions will soon exchange programs with universities under the European Union belt. Reporting Samgal Siwekoza and Temba Shabangu, Mbabane.
Industrial Court Judge Kusile Faith Dlamini said Eswatini Med would not be held at ransom for actions of its former board chairperson Semi Dlamini, who failed to convene a board meeting despite requests to do so. Now, the judge then issued a ruling that the court can hear the application that is filed by Eswatini Med seeking a court order to compel the company's manager, Peter Samora Simelane, to comply with his suspension from duty.
The judge says after reviewing the evidence presented in court, it became clear that convening a meeting is not solely the responsibility of a chairperson, especially when the chairperson fails to call such a meeting. The judge further stated that after chairperson Semi Dlamini failed to call the meeting, the board of directors went ahead and convened the meeting on March 18, 2025. The judge adds that the meeting proceeded and that the number of attendees constituted a quorum. The judge says during that meeting, Bheki Mazia was elected to act as chairperson of Eswatini Med. The judge adds that Mazia was authorized during the meeting to bring the matter before the court. The judge notes that Simelane is challenging his employer's authority to bring the matter to court, but has not challenged the issue of his suspension from work while still receiving his full salary. The judge went on to state that an employer has the authority to investigate misconduct by the employee. The judge says it is not the role of the court to interfere with internal company processes. The judge states that for this reason, Eswatini Med's application to bring the matter before the court is upheld. The judge further adds that the board of directors exercise its powers by convening the meeting held on March 18, 2025. The judge says that a matter that is ongoing at the High Court is not the same as the one before court, as parties involved are not the same. In the High Court matter, the applicant is Business Eswatini and the respondents are Simelane and Chairperson Dlamini. The judge says this differs from the current matter before the Industrial Court, where the applicant is Eswatini Med and the respondent is Simelane. The judge then instructed that the legal representatives should go and consult with their client to confirm whether or not they wish to proceed with the matter in this court. The judge said the lawyers must return by the 5th of next month to inform the court if they are continuing with the matter before this court. Simelane is represented by his lawyer Sabela Dlamini, while Eswatini Med is represented by lawyers Mphilisi Mtshali. Reporting Fortune Dlangamandla, Industrial Court.
Over the next past 9 years, winners of the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards have generated an impressive turnover exceeding 102 million emalangeni. Now, to understand the significance of these awards in promoting entrepreneurship and economic development, we spoke with Ketsiwe Mema. She's the communications officer at the Small Enterprise Development Company, SEDCO.
For 19 years, the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards have been transforming the lives of eMaswati by honoring excellence in business. To understand the economic impact of these awards, we spoke with the Small Enterprises Development Company.
Emma winners for Akolili from 2013 to 2024.
The Entrepreneur of the Year Awards have been a local game changer for local businesses. Since their inception in 2002, these awards have generated over 102 million emalangeni in turnover and created employment opportunities for 1,326 eMaswati. Over the past 9 years, we have celebrated 162 winners and distributed more than 2.4 million emalangeni in cash prizes. This initiative has not only recognized excellency in entrepreneurship, but also provided a platform for businesses to gain recognition and access to resources that fuel their growth.
The government, through the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, has been a strong supporter of the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards, The ministry's endorsement underscores the importance of entrepreneurship in the country's economic development strategy. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
Vuselelo Fagutse, the president of Business Eswatini, has stressed the critical need for Eswatini to achieve energy sustainability to attract high-value investors. In a compelling statement ahead of next week's investment conference, Fagutse emphasized that the country's energy sustainability is pivotal to attracting high-value investors. He highlighted that Eswatini's current energy landscape, heavily reliant on imports, underscores the urgency for self-sufficiency.
High-value investors are going to come in Eswatini as soon as we're able to generate our own energy. We've had various consultations with them, and they say as soon as you are able to provide us with guaranteed electricity, we'll be able to set up our manufacturing plants in the kingdom. So that is why, as a bank and as a country, we're driving energy growth so that there's more generation of power, because as soon as we get there, we can then start to industrialize agriculture, to industrialize a lot of the Eswatini business sector and private sector, to ensure that we can create the real question that you're asking, which is high-value investors and better paying jobs for Eswatini. So it is in our interest to do that. The banking sector is not bad, to be honest. The sugar sector shouldn't be, so there are pockets of excellence in that, but I think we need more industries like that. So we're hoping that this investor conference is going to do that. There are a lot of also mining opportunities that we expect those people to look at in the kingdom. There's lots of tourism activities that the kingdom has to offer. It's a beautiful country. So if we really market it well, the tourism sector can grow significantly. So I think there are a lot of untapped opportunities that we can still explore as a kingdom, but I just think we need to also attract the right investors to ensure that, they can offer more value for money for Eswatini.
Now, international news. India and Pakistan are teetering on the edge of war following a series of missile strikes that were launched by India, targeting sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. Now, the strikes mark a significant escalation in the long-standing tensions between the two nuclear-armed neighbors. Viewer discretion is advised.
India has fired a series of missiles into Pakistan. The loud explosions caused injuries, death, and led to blackouts and confusion.
We were asleep when we heard huge explosions, and an announcement came from the mosque loudspeakers that we need to evacuate the area as soon as possible.
The airstrikes targeted several sites, including Pakistan-administered Kashmir and Punjab. They were in retaliation to last month's militant attack, which killed 26 tourists in the Indian-controlled portion of Kashmir. India blamed Pakistan for backing the militant attack, which Islamabad denied.
Focused strikes were carried out on 9 terrorist infrastructure sites targeting the roots of cross-border terror planning. Importantly, no Pakistani military facilities were hit, reflecting India's calibrated and non-escalatory approach.
Pakistan has vowed to respond to the strikes, and there were reports of shelling on the Indian side of the border.
The Indians are questioning their own government, that they have no evidence, they have no facts, and they ran away from the investigation, which Pakistan had offered, and they attacked our civilians, they attacked our mosque today. Pakistan will now respond, and respond very, very effectively. Make no mistake, because our desire for peace should not be mistaken for our weakness.
Tensions between the two nuclear-armed neighbours have always been high in the Kashmir region. Both countries claim it as their own, but only control a portion of it each. There has been some global reaction so far to the escalation. President Trump said it was a real shame and hopes it ends quickly. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said the world cannot afford a military confrontation between India and Pakistan. He stressed that a military solution was no solution.
In our sports news, the Ministry for Sports has declared its commitment in assisting local students with different sporting programs on how to exercise and keep active regularly. Now, the ministry believes a healthy student is indeed a successful one. This was unveiled during the Eswatini Medical Christian University 12-year celebration of existence, where the ministry was represented by the Under-Secretary in the ministry, Mzwandile Mthethwa.
The Ministry of Sport, Culture and Youth Affairs is proud to witness higher education institutions like the Eswatini Medical Christian University recognizing sport not only as team-building mechanism, but a platform for making a cohesive Christian community by nurturing youth talent in sport and art. This noble initiative aligns with government's efforts to create opportunities that will enhance self-employment for the youth, particularly in light of the increasing youth unemployment in the Kingdom of Eswatini. Recently, it has been observed that the talents of Eswatini in both sports and art are gaining increased global recognition. Emaswati artists and athletes are being afforded opportunities to showcase their skills and compete internationally, helping our young people explore rewarding career paths and bolstering their creative economy. Program Director, allow me to commend the Eswatini Medical Christian University for today's idea, which not only fosters fitness and health, but also recognizes the artistic and athletic talents of both students and staff, adding to the university's mandate of offering higher education and training to Emaswati in the medical field, social sciences, and ICT.
All right, that marks the end of our English news. We'll go for an ad break, but first we look at our weather focused for the day. We return with an interview with Lidwala Insurance.
I-Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority imema phinza yatisa bosomabhizinisi nemaswati lanenishisekelo yekudlala inzima ekukhangeni batshali timali labalaveni nangaphandle kutsi itabe inengcungcuthela yekubonisana ngetekutfutfukisa umnotfo mhla ka-15 kuyo lenyanga. Kwati kabanti thumela sicelo sakho ku-email letsi investmentconference@sipa.org.sz. Asakheni umnotfo, wakheke amathuba emisebenti, kutfutfuke timphilo temaswati. Indzaba yekwakha umnotfo ngeyetfu sonke maswati, asingasaleli emuva.
Good day, everybody. My name is Mangoba Khumalo, the Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade in Eswatini. We believe Eswatini is open for business. Eswatini is your investment destination of choice. We always position ourselves as a private sector-led economy, an export-driven economy, and an industrial hub for manufacturing in the region. Our primary markets being the Southern African region as well as the rest of Africa, and we do have strong export potential even beyond the continent of Africa. We are privileged as a country to be part of SACU, to be part of SADC, to be part of COMESA, and now to be part of the AFCFTA. And we've got very strong economic partnership agreements with the likes of Taiwan, Mercosur, which is the Latin American countries, European Union, the SACU, EU and the SACU UK partnership, and lastly AGOA.
Good day, my name is Masocha Vilagati. I'm the CEO of the Public Service Pensions Fund in Eswatini, commonly known as PSPF. At PSPF, we are a pension fund for civil servants, and of course, as part of our duties is to invest the funds that come through to the pension fund. We are heavily invested in Eswatini as a pension fund that is based here. We are also looking forward to partnering with external investors that would love to come and invest in Eswatini. We are very excited to be part of the inaugural Eswatini Investment Conference. We hope we can interact with external investors mainly and also domestic investors so that we can partner and actually do great things for Eswatini. We would like to invite external investors to come in and invest in Eswatini. Eswatini has great things. I'm sure in the conference a lot will be unpacked for the external investors to understand and be comfortable with this, with investing in Eswatini.
My name is Nixon Dlamini. I am the Chief Executive Officer for Eswatini Railways. We have very good access to the ports of Richards Bay and Durban in South Africa, as well as the port of Maputo. The railway line is part of the North-South Corridor and what's also dubbed as the Goba Corridor, which means that trains can actually travel right up to the Democratic Republic of Congo, touching countries such as Zambia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, as already mentioned, and South Africa, with also the possibility of connecting with the Tazara line, so under the Southern African Railways Association. We've been operating as a railways for the last 60 years, and we're in the business of railways, and we know it.
My name is Zakele Lukele, the General Manager for Roads Food Eswatini. At RFG, we are proud to be one of the leading agro-processors, farming as well as exporting our pineapples and citrus to the international market. These markets include the United States of America, Japan, and the United Kingdom. Also part of our production is our jams, and these jams remain very competitive in the East, Central, and Southern African market.
Maswati lamahle siyathanda ukucela onke amaswati ukuthi sibambisane sisazama ukukhanga batshali imali labatawenda bakhe imisebenzi yeveni ukuthi asibambisane sisebenzisane kahle nebaqhashi bethu kanye naye uhulumende nasenda njalo ke umnotho utawukhula indlala kahle yalo lonke iswati itawuba khona. Siyathi ke sonke singamaswati ukuthi live liyengcayelo. Siyabonga.
Welcome back. Sakvusela Nalo Sanzago Sivulel, as mentioned earlier. We're now joined by the risk engineer at Litwala Insurance, Lomtlasi Kulumang and Workmen's Compensation. Why is it important for employers to have it? Emisebendini 47. Saneliso Mabuza joins us now. Very good morning, Saneliso Sabang. As we were talking before we went live just now, what is actually workmen's compensation?
Yes.
How crucial is it for employers to have it?
It's a very crucial cover insurance le workmen's compensation le phocelekile bonke baqashi kangwane ukuthi bayithathe 70 dabo. So yona ikavarisha ema-injuries etisebenzi from now suka nje ekhaya uya emsebenzini usemsebenzini noma soya ekhaya any injury le related kulo msebenzi wakho lo wendako loqashele wona yona iyakavarisha ukuthi noma ngabe kunema medical expenses esekufuna salabhadaleka ngokuthi ulimele umqashi utawabhadala thina sizabe sesiyambhadala back, which is part of the cover le khona noma ngabe sekunelimala lokuthide lokutakwenda ukuthi uhlale ekhaya ungakhona ukuya emsebenzini umqashi kufuna kuchubeka kubhadalela imali leyo usekhaya thina siyamhlangabeda kubhadaleni iholo lakho ukuze ungalahlekelwa ngomsebenzi. Phinze futhi nangabe sokukhubatekile kube kunekukhubateka lokuthide sitha kuncephethela mhlambe sekungabe ulimele kwajubeka sandla kwendeka lokwanalokho sitha kuncephethela thina ngemali lethide lebele kugazethi yaka Labor ukuthi manje kumele sikubhadale kanganani noma ke nangabe sekunelishwa soshonile siyakubhadala kunemali lethide lekufuna sikubhadalele yona ukuthi manje cha soshonile sibakhalise basekhaya.
Okay.
Yes, it's part of that.
All right. So before Jensi, ngifuna sive kahle la kulama injuries. Today before going to work, I could be involved in a car accident in Setala 17.
Yes.
It covers that as well.
Yes. Nawusuka nje ekhaya usiso emsebenzini iyaqala le cover iyakavarisha. Kungako uhulumende abone ukuthi kumqoka ukuthi wonke umqasha kamthathele umsebenzi dawo. So it's a statutory cover lena. Ukuthi bonke baqashi bathathele isebenzi. Nawusuka ekhaya uya emsebenzini usuka emsebenzini uya ekhaya uyade ukuthi manje kune cover letakubhadalela should anything happen to you baqashi kumele bakuthathele yona. So bongako kumqoka kakhulu ukuthi bonke baqashi kangwane batithathele isebenzi dabo.
So le yakalidwala insurance ihluke ngani yona unique
ke for years in the insurance space bekuyinye insurer lebevumelekile ukuthi mhlambe inganika isebenzi workmen's compensation. So ngenhlanhla iparliament igcina ivulile ukuthi onke ama insurance companies sangavukile sangayithengisa le workmen's compensation. So lidwala ke ubese uyavela wabuka ukuthi manje ngoba thina we pride ourselves in customer centricity sabuka ukuthi okay what is offered yini le shodako leso letibaqashi etikwa lokubhalwe phasi emthethweni. So thina sehluke nganako ke kalidwala lokuthi yini utekithi nangabe kwendekile kwashona sisebenzi sashonela ngenzaba ukuthi besisebenza noma semsebenzini thina ke bakalidwala sitakunika 20,000 amalangeni cash ukuthi nikhone kungcwaba loyo bhuti noyomnakeni loshonile ashonele emsebenzini 20,000 cash cover kwehlukile ke lokho igazethi ithi thina sekubhadala 300 thina sitakunika 20,000 ngaloku buka letithi ngoba sekusuke kushone lo muntu lo ngiyena aletha singwa la khaya kuthi nimgcwabe with dignity siyayiloko awusikubhadalise imali le extra on top of that lidwala uyakunika nje lokho. Lokunye igazethi ithi manje thina sibhadale 136,000 ema medical expenses thina sithi sesiyabona tino sesikhulile kulamalanga tikhula onke malanga so sibhadalisine asibhadale nje lo 136,000 siyahamba size sigabancele sifike ku 220,000 emalangeni ema medical expenses kude ke lo offerisha le mali leyo la kangwane kulama insurance ngolidwala kuphela. Phinze nangabe kwendekile kwashona umuntu emsebenzini mhlambe sebayayisuka inkampani ukuthi mhlambe khona budlabha lebe yabakhona sibanika employers liability lehamba ifike ku 1 million emalangeni mahala tonke tinto leto lesitinika baqashi ukuthi bakhone kwati ukuthi noma ngabe kwendekani ba safe letino etinzathu lentibalile leto sithi offerisha mahala kalidwala kude imali lengedulu lekufuna ungede ukuthi uyinike lidwala. Ngoba siyadepride ngekuthi thina siyinkampani eMaswati sinakelele eMaswati ukuthi konke lokwendekako basitakale ngale cover lena. So for years bekumunye umuntu bekavumelekile sonyalo thina sithi wotakithi kalidwala utawuthola more for less ngalo kushona nje lidwala insurance.
All right.
Yes.
So nasisakhuluma nje ngale cover said kuthi emisebenzini we have permanent employees, we have employees that are on contract, we have graduate trainees, we have interns. I-coverisha every employee noma mhlambe nibukela bo laba permanent kuphela.
Cha, asikacoverisha nje kuphela permanent employees, coverisha wonke umuntu lo sebentako lo permanent, lo contract, lo internship, as long as uqashiwe usebenta usemsebentini kumele umqashi wakho ayithathe le workers compensation kunibukelela ukuthi manje i-welfare yenu ijani. So it's part of it. And iyasida nakulama full labor compliance nje bakaleba bahle bahlola lokuthi manje ba comply yini. So this is a crucial document le workers compensation cover lele yenda ukuthi ukhone ukuba ne full labor compliance. So sithina ke wotakalidwala ube ipartner yethu kuze ukhone kubone ukuthola i-full labor compliance. Ngakho nje na ubona ama billboards ethu sihlale sibhala nje ukuthi workers compensation for workers compensation partner for full labor compliance. Siyakhayisa ngaloko ukuthi thina ngedocument yethu yavela kale baba konike i-full labor compliance ngaloko ukuthi uthethe icover kalidwala. Njengoba sengichazile nje is more for less. Wotakithi thina kalidwala sitakunika the best cover in the country.
Speaking of compliance, when nyaba sita with the legal requirements as well, the documents that are needed.
Yes, siyakusida ngaloko lena i-document lengiyona lemqoka kakhulu lena ukuthi manje ukhona ukuthola le full labor compliance. So siyakusida siyaku-assessela futhi nema-risk akho. Lokho ke seyi-value add service letholakala nje kalidwala kuphela la kangwane. Lokuthi umsebentini wakho tisebenza sekwendele i-risk management plan, sekunike nema-risk mitigation lo ngawafaka in place ukuthi tisebenta takho tingalimali. Ngoba as much as le cover ikhona in place workers compensation, kude umqashi lofisa kubona ukuthi isebenta yakhe ilimala noma umuntu usojubeka sandla noma soya amputate. Sithine ke siyakusida sikwendele plan, sikwendele assessment environment yakho sekutshele ukuthi bona lana ngoba kude sisebentile kumele silimale emsebentini kanti lento be preventable. So sibe sesingena lapho thina sibakalidwala sik-offerishe le service leyo ukuthi cha buka la lungisa lana kuze abantu isebenta yakho ingalimali. Then ke ngilishwa nakwendekile le workers compensation cover bese ke iyasida ke lapho.
Okay.
Yes.
So take us through the claims process from the time lemumvu alimala to the final settlement. Lokuthi ngiyalimala nje namuhla ngefaka iclaim yami, isithatha i-process lethatha isikhathi esinganani le kwendeka kanjani?
Le claims process iyashiyana ngalokuthi ulimala njani. Lesinye isikhathi nje ngoba ungalimala lamhla ungakhanza ukuthi udawulashwa sikhathi lesize yabona, but lokumqoka ukuthi usi-informe kungakapheli 7 days kwendekele ngodi ukuthi manje cha khona lo salimele. Then uyasinforma nabakalebha, then bese iyaqala ke le claim yakho. Ngeke isathe isikhathi ngoba phela mhlambe kudathina ulimele kudzingeke bofizo naloko konke, but sithine sakalidwala sihamba nawe yonke lendlela sikubhadale imali yakho futhi siyashesha ngekubhadala ngoba phela siyathi ukuthi manje njengoba nibhadele ama premiums kufuna usitakale masinyane asiphutisi ke lapho. Ma medical expenses siyawabhadala as in carer as an employer, siyawabhadala sifika njengoba sengishito sifika 220,000 singilidwala insurance. Sigcine nje lo 136,000 siyabhadala kanjalo naloko nangabe sekushona umuntu labor uta ukwenda le process leyo asho sichata imali talomntu ingaka as soon as lifika le file kalidwala thina nje sifaka imali ngendlela ngendlela yakhona asiphutisi sithina ngeke uyonqonqotha ukuthi yathi ngithi imali tami takalidwala thina sibhadala nje lapho nalifika le file siyabhadala imali tenu khona nangabe nishonelwe noma ulimele noma mhlambe sokhubatekile ukhone ukuphila ngoba sohlele ekhaya masinyana siphutisi ke nakhe ngala ibhadaleni.
Alright, kwekugcina nje sanele so tikhona tinkampani leti solo ti hesitant ukuthi tibhadale leti sebentitayo i-workmen's compensation. What advice would you give those companies?
Asengiqale lana kwekuqala nje lona ngumthetho welive loshaya eParliament ukuthi kumele utibhadalele. But ke nawe ungumqashi awuhlala unabo 220,000 ukuthi ngaleso sisebenzi. Kanti thina usibhadala nje imali lencane thina bakalidwala will take care of everything. Nawe kunika peace of mind as umqashi wathi ukuthi isebenzisa yakho should anything happen ukhona lidwala insurance lutakubambisa akunakekele ama medical expenses nangabe khona khubateka lokuthide umbhadale nabe ushonile sitakunika nje 20,000 cash ukuthi uhambe umise inyembede ekhaya angicwabeke ngesizotha lesizotha lesifanele leso sisebenza. So into lemqoka nawe as a peace of mind for umqashi nje usasebenza even la kangwane ngaphandle kwazi kusemthethweni kumqoka nje lokuthi wotithathe lisebenzi takho wotakithi thina sema affordable rates ngaloku sivele sekuvulekile akusakusimunye lokhona lo charge ako thina wa coming with very competitive rates la affordable la phasi futhi and you get more. More for less. But you get more for less.
Get more for less. All right. Thank you so much, Saneli. So, risk engineer, Galitola Insurance, Otivele, Goguti, their affordable rates laba now. But to find out more, to visit their offices back home, Nakuvagabanding workmen's compensation. Because for net pregnancy, we are Sikumisana EU ambassador.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.sz. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi
aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokusebenza.
Swati sisuka lapho khona kunetindzaba tasesangweni nasegumeni, and we need not lose that. The education needs to start from there.
What we want to see going forward is a situation where the government is not politicized in terms of the advancement of human rights.
Try push the message. If we do happen to get a victim of human trafficking, try to provide their basic safe spaces and their basic needs.
We have to make sure ukuthi le mithetho iyafika le kulabantu ngoba lokukhulu kakhulu lo mthetho siwuva sesiboshiwe.
69,000 SMEs in the country. A quarter of those are businesses that are being run by young people.
Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Kusile Breakfast Show. It's exactly 42 minutes after 7. We want to get into this very important conversation now when it comes to strategic partnerships. Very few as enduring or as far-reaching as the relationship between the European Union and the Kingdom of Eswatini. Now, from infrastructure to innovation, agriculture to access to justice, the EU has been a constant investing over 6 billion emalangeni since 1968. Now, there's been a new face leading that mission in the kingdom, His Excellency Carsten Mecklenburg, who has taken the reins as the EU ambassador to Eswatini. And he has wasted no time in hitting the ground running. Now, ahead of Europe Day 2025 celebrations, we want to speak to the man in the diplomatic driving seat about his vision, the EU's priorities, and the road ahead for Eswatini's EU cooperation. Ambassador Mecklenburg, welcome to the program. A very good morning to you.
A very good morning. This very nice sunny day.
Now, we saw you on, it has been, 7 months now, but I think it has been only 2 weeks since the credentials with His Majesty the King. I think my first question to you would be, beginning with the obvious, first impressions matter. Arriving in Eswatini 7 months ago, what struck you first about Eswatini and its people?
Thank you very much. What struck me really was two things: the beauty of the country, Obviously, I did read, I did inform myself before arriving, but once you are here, looking at the mountains, looking at your countryside, it's just impressive. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
The climate is pleasant. I spent my last 4 years in West Africa in a landlocked country at an average 40 degrees. So it's nice to be also in a place where you can breathe, which reminds me a bit of my climate from my home northern Germany. A lot of rain, a lot of beautiful sunshine. The other thing that struck me was also the people. They're extremely kind, very proud. So that's something also with whomever I meet, be it government officials, be it people in the villages, but also business people. Everybody is very proud of what he himself is doing, but also of the country with its very particular cultural features. It's a kingdom that makes it different, but also the pride of the specific heritage of governance, of where the country comes from. Though that's something that impressed me really. And then also how people interact with each other with a sense of respect. So I see it if I go through, obviously, Baban, Manzini, Matsapa, it's impressively well developed. Then you see if you go in the more remote areas, it's a bit more difficult. People struggle a bit more, so there's discrepancies. But nevertheless, you still see that sense of respect, how people interact with each other.
It's quite beautiful because, you know, some people from the outside looking in often hear about how kind and, you know, how, you know, just warm the people of the Kingdom of Eswatini are. And a lot of them seem to doubt it until they get here. And I'm happy that you have received your fair share in this 7 months of, you know, this warmth and kindness, but also you enjoying the climate and everything, the weather. An average of 40 degrees Celsius is crazy. I don't know how you managed to live through that in Burkina Faso. But, you know, you've obviously hit the ground running in the Kingdom of Eswatini. We've already seen you from the Bushfire Festival launch to, you know, Press Freedom Day. We've seen, you know, some of the sentiments that you've shared there. How has the diplomatic engine warmed up so far? Has it been a smooth gear shift into the Eswatini landscape or a bumpy ride?
No, it has been very smooth. It's also it's made very easy by the very open and constructive attitude from whomever I meet in the authorities, cabinet ministers in the government, the Prime Minister. And yes, you're referring my credentials. I met His Majesty about 2 weeks ago, I believe. This is how diplomacy goes. Once you are only when you presents the formal letter of credentials, then you are the ambassador extraordinary plenipotentiary of the country you represent. For me, it's the European Union. But the government made it very easy for me to act, nevertheless, from day one of when I arrived in September. So I was able to meet members of government. I was able to also participate in public events, except those where His Majesty participates. You referred to recently the Press Freedom Day, indeed, the launch of the bushfire schools. But from day one, when I arrived in September, I remember one of the first events was a renewable energy event. An energy forum that we co-organized with local organizations, with Minister Reichenberg participating at the time. And that's indeed one of the challenges for the country, the finding an alternative new source of energy, so not to be dependent on electricity imports. Because if you want to develop the economy, you need internet and electricity. Absolutely. And this is something we address together.
Yeah, let's talk about Europe Day. You know, we have very limited time here on our interview. A celebration of unity, a celebration of peace, a celebration of purpose. And I think that's a very important word there. But for many, it's just another date on the calendar. And, you know, if someone at home right now listening, okay, Europe Day, what's that about? Let's strip it down for them. You know, what exactly are we commemorating and how is the EU mission in Eswatini planning to mark it?
Well, for us, Europe Day is the 9th of May. So it has different angles to it. But otherwise, as you say, it's just another day in the calendar. 9th of May, what we are referring to is the 9th of May 1950. It was 5 years after the end of the Second World War, which was a major devastating event for Europe and the world. And it was the then French foreign minister, Robert Schuman, who came out with an idea to get away from the logic of the past, where countries fight over resources, where countries seek their own advantage against their neighbors.
Right.
So to seek to win over the others, to get your own advantage at the detriment of the others. And the idea of Robert Schuman was, why not build a new Europe based on solidarity and understand the logic that we are all together and we can thrive together. There is a logic of building wealth on the back of solidarity.
Right, right.
So that everybody wins. So his idea was to bring together the resources at the time, steel and coal, where Germany and France fought over like for 100 years. There were wars before. The First World War was one of them. So to say, why not reunite those industry in what was called then, later on when it was created, the European Coal and Steel Community. It was, so he proposed in a speech on the 9th of May to construct a new Europe based on solidarity, mutual respect and peace. And with the support of our partners, the first 6 founding members of the European Union launched this idea. It grew further over the years. We are now 27 member states. And I think the message is that we can see now, looking back to those 75 years, it was a success story. So that it is possible to build wealth of nations where everybody wins, where you respect each other, where you build your wealth based on rules, based on governance, based on democracy and peace. It doesn't need to be a zero-sum game. We hear that nowadays sometimes, where some countries say, oh, if he wins, I lose.
Yeah.
Our logic is the opposite, and that's what we celebrate on the 9th of May. How we celebrate it here, I mean, in the end, it's, as you say, it's just another day in the calendar. But I will assemble tomorrow members of government, our partners, some members of the diplomatic community, in a modest event to celebrate. Absolutely. So to be together, to exchange ideas, to look back on the history of our own development, but also the partnership with Eswatini, because that's also important. That's why we are here.
It's beautiful. And I think, you know, morality, humanity, and inclusive development sitting at the premise of all of that is really commendable. And looking forward to, you know, learning about what happens tomorrow and what you speak about, you know, convening all these important stakeholders. But now, since 1968, the EU has not just been a partner to the Kingdom of Eswatini, but if you like, an architect of progress. You just spoke about, you know, assisting the kingdom in, you know, the renewable energy. We've seen a lot of projects, you know, from youth development to, you know, alleviating the youth unemployment, curbing, you know, that gap that is there. A lot of gaps that you are helping Eswatini sort of bridge. I want to understand, you know, from your own perspective, what has been the real impact, as well as where has the EU moved the needle most significantly, or where it wants to move it more significantly right now.
Okay. Well, looking back, I think what's important for us, and it has been important in all our partner countries where we are partners for development, that we develop our action in the country together with the authorities. So we don't come in as a spaceship from abroad to say we know what's best, this is what we want to do. No, we talk to government, we see what's the needs, what's the priorities, how do we fit into government programs. And in that sense, I think some of the things that we have done in the last more than 50 years here have been very successful. What comes to my mind is creating access to free and quality primary education.
Yes.
We have now, the country has achieved, thanks to our massive support to that, a rate of, I think, 97% of access to primary education, not only free, but also high quality. We have been very active in the area of supporting, building up the sugar industry, and not only supporting the big players, but in particular looking into how small-scale farmers can benefit from the development.
Yes.
creating irrigation schemes, supporting, bringing communities together. So in addition to sugar, also I'm thinking of horticulture, fruit, vegetable growers. So some of the smallholder farmers have really benefited. And it struck me also when I met His Majesty that he was saying when he now tours the country, that in many communities he got that feedback to say, oh yeah, we were able to do this thanks to the support by the European Union. And that makes us proud, obviously. Otherwise, we have been, I said, in green energy. We are still active in that. We are supporting the government and business in terms of improving the business environment, helping also startup enterprises. It was an important project that's still running with the International Trade Center to support small and medium-sized enterprises, startups, in really kickstarting their business, finding a way into the market, finding a way possibly also to export. And that's something we have been doing over the past years. Now, if you ask about what's the priority for our current and future periods, we have defined, again, together with the government, the important issue of youth unemployment. So it's clearly something. So if you manage to create an improved business environment, and if you look into what's the future economy in the country, you also want to match it with the skills of the young people so that people find a job that they can make the country grow. So technical and vocational education and training is something that is really important for us in the future. We put it under the label human capital, develop human capital. What is at the same time important for us is that it's not only supporting the able and capable, but that we also don't forget the vulnerable groups. So that's social inclusion, that we look into also how to support vulnerable groups, how to support, for example, also women empowerment, so that women can be part of the economy, that the young generation is supported, but also people with disabilities, for example, that they have a way to earn their life. So this is the two blocks, human capital development and social inclusion, together with and aligned with government priorities, is what we look into the years to come.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Ambassador. Human capital development, very important, but also importantly, making it inclusive. I think that is very important. Clear priorities, bold partnerships, and a mission already in motion. Ambassador Carsten Mecklenburg is not just a representative of Europe, but he's actively shaping its role in Eswatini's future, and you've heard it from him here. Tomorrow, Europe Day. We hope that goes well too. Thank you for being with us on the program today. This has been the Kusile Breakfast Show, the Thursday edition. Have yourself a good day. Bye-bye.
Good day, everybody. My name is Mangoba Khumalo, the Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade in Eswatini. We believe Eswatini is open for business. Eswatini is your investment destination of choice. We always position ourselves as a private sector-led economy, an export-driven economy, and an industrial hub for manufacturing in the region. Our primary markets being the Southern African region as well as the rest of Africa, and we do have strong export potential even beyond the continent of Africa. We are privileged as a country to be part of SACU, to be part of SADC, to be part of COMESA, and now to be part of the AFCFTA. And we've got very strong economic partnership agreements with the likes of Taiwan, Mercosur, which is the Latin American countries, European Union, the SACU, EU, and the SACU UK partnership, and lastly, AGOA.
Good day. My name is Masocha Vilagati. I'm the CEO of the Public Service Pensions Fund in Eswatini, commonly known as PSPF. At PSPF, we are a pension fund for civil servants, and of course, as part of our duties is to invest the funds that come through to the pension fund. We are heavily invested in Eswatini as a pension fund that is based here. We are also looking forward to partnering with external investors that would love to come and invest in Eswatini. We are very excited to be part of the inaugural Eswatini Investment Conference, We hope we can interact with external investors mainly and also domestic investors so that we can partner and actually do great things for Eswatini. We would like to invite external investors to come in and invest in Eswatini. Eswatini has great things. I'm sure in the conference a lot will be unpacked for the external investors to understand and be comfortable with this, with investing in Eswatini.
My name is Nixon Dlamini. I am the Chief Executive Officer for Eswatini Railways. We have very good access to the ports of Richards Bay and Durban in South Africa, as well as the port of Maputo. The railway line is part of the North-South corridor and what's also dubbed as the Goba corridor, which means that trains can actually travel right up to the Democratic Republic of Congo, touching countries such as Zambia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, as already mentioned, and South Africa, with also the possibility of connecting with the Tazara line, so under the Southern African Railways Association. We've been operating as a railways for the last 60 years, and we're in the business of railways, and we know it.
My name is Zakele Lukele, the General Manager for Roads Food, Eswatini. At RFG, we are proud to be one of the leading agro-processors, farming as well as exporting our pineapples and citrus to the international market. These markets include the United States of America, Japan, and the United Kingdom. Also part of our production is our jams, and these jams remain very competitive in the East, Central, and Southern African market.
I-Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority imema phinza yatisa bosomabhizinisi nemaswati lanenishisekelo yekudlala inzima ekukhangeni batshalitimali labalaveni nangaphandle kutsi itabe inengcungcuthela yekubonisana ngetekutfutfukisa umnotfo mhla ka-15 kuyo lenyanga. Kwati kabanti thumela sicelo sakho ku-email letsi investmentconference@sipa.org.sz. Asakheni umnotfo, wakheke amatfuba emisebenti, kutfutfuke timphilo temaswati. Indzaba yokwakha umnotfo ngeyetfu sonke maswati, asingasaleli emuva.
Maswati lamahle, siyatsandza kucela onke maswati ukuthi sibambisane sisazama ukukhanga batshali timali labatawenda bakhe imisebenzi yeveni. Ukuthi asibambisane sisebenzisane kahle nebaqashi bethu kanye naye uhulumende. Nasenda njalo ke umnotho utawukhula. Inhlala kahle lalo lonke Swati itawuba khona. Siyathi ke sonke singemaswati ukuthi live